me. I got to talk to Darlene Kimball Tuesday and see her new baby. And her delivery is one of the most unusual I've ever heard of. She was told at least 4 times that she was in labor and needed to go to the hospital, and 4 times she said, no, I've got something else to do. When she walked in, the nurse said, would you like a wheelchair? And she said, no, why? And Darlene's had her child, and it was very exciting to see that baby. This week I got to sit in a dentist chair and have a tooth drilled on for the first time in my life. After 55 years, it was worth, I'm glad I waited. I'm glad I waited. And then I also found myself thinking this week about Professor Lorraine Montgomery's terrible problem. Lorraine is a professor of architecture in Savannah who's been so helpful to us. She's the one who sent class after class of her students to the past. And Lorraine has a 14-year-old named Nikki who's on our prayer list. Nikki has cancer. And it just tears at my heart. But all of these things, Darlene, the dentist, Lorraine, reminded me of these lessons today. Because our friend Jonah is kind of in a bad way. And for the first time in his life, he's trapped in the belly of a fish. Now, I don't know many of you have done that, but old Jonah finds himself trapped in the belly of a fish, and he did not choose to be there. And he's really having a miserable time. It all started when he tried to run away from God. God asked him to go to Nineveh. In Jonah 1:2, God says, go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it, because its wickedness has come up before me. But Jonah doesn't want to. And Jonah tries to run away. He runs away to the mythical city of Tarshish. He takes a boat across the Mediterranean, and somewhere in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, God sends this great storm so that Jonah will be dealt with. And the crew on the vessel becomes so concerned for their welfare that they cast lots to see whose fault this storm is, and the lot falls to Jonah. And so they begin to question him, what have you done? And he confesses what he's done, so they throw him overboard. And a great fish swallows him. Now, I used to think that this story of Jonah just could not be true, that, when those fundamentalists started talking about this, yeah, they didn't know what they were talking about. That's just the biggest silly thing I ever heard. It's just a fanciful story about a guy who fell overboard, got swallowed by a giant fish only to escape and later tell about it. It was just too strange to be true. And then I met a guy at Curcio. And this guy at Curcio walks in and he says, Father Colby, I used to be a diver for one of the major oil companies. And he said, one day I was down at the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico inspecting pipeline, which is my job, and a great, huge grouper came up behind me and swallowed me up to here. And I thought, uh-oh, the story must be true. I said, how'd you get out? He said, basic rule of diving, never dive alone. Never dive alone. He said, my partner just beat on a fish till he let go. Good. So Jonah is true. Jonah gets swallowed by a giant fish, and he has to come to terms with what's going on. And what we're reading about today is he's finally accepting that he lives by God's will, and he's got to continue to live by God's will. And what's excluded from this reading is the next verse that says, then the swift fish vomited him up on the beach. So that he could go to that great city of Nineveh and tell them that they were on the wrong track. And he did. Now all of us get a turn at difficulty. You know, you just wake up one day and you find yourself completely engulfed, completely swallowed up by something horrible, whether it's a hurricane or whether it's cancer or a big fish, and there's just no escape. You're in it. So what are you going to do? There's just no getting away. You have to face the music. You have to come to terms with what God's will is and try to do it, even in the belly of the fish, even in the heart of the hurricane, even in the midst of your cancer. Well, that brings us to our gospel reading, where we find the disciples together in a small boat, facing utter terror in the fourth watch of the night. This is the last watch of the night. This is the hours right before dawn. Like Jonah, they're in the midst of the sea. They're surrounded by water. There is no quick exit. And they are being beaten by the waves. The wind is against them. And what that means is they can make no progress. Now, what's different here is that the disciples aren't trying to run away. They're trying to be obedient. In Matthew 14:22, it says, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side. So they are being obedient. They are not trying to run away. And the point here is, even the good people, even the holy people, get a turn at the bad things in life.